Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Recha Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of 1 Kings, the 8th chapter, continuing along. And at this point, right, we've dealt with King Solomon coming up into power and the construction, right, the building projects that he undertook with the help of Hiram, right? And we went through the building of the temple, right, and the building of Solomon's palace itself, right? So here we are in 1 Kings, the 8th chapter, where we see them bringing in the Ark of the Covenant and actually now placing that within the temple that was built, and then ultimately Solomon's prayer for Israel. Okay, so this is 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 1. Then Solomon assembled the elders of Israel and all the heads of the tribes, the chief of the fathers of the children of Israel, unto King Solomon in Jerusalem, that they might bring up the ark of the covenant of the Lord out of the city of David, which is Zion. All right, so pretty much, he called for that assembly and for them to transport the ark to this location in Jerusalem where the temple was built. And all the men of Israel assembled themselves unto King Solomon in the feast of the month Ethanim, which is the 7th month, and I believe this is the Feast of Tabernacles. And all the elders of Israel came, and the priest took up the ark, right? Because we know only the priests were actually sanctified to be able to bear the ark and the holy vessels and so on. And they brought up the ark of the Lord and the tabernacle of the congregation and all the holy vessels that were in the tabernacle, even those that the priests and the Levites bring up. Now remember that in the wilderness, the design and everything was there, right? But this wasn't built with like the materials, the same kind of materials, and mainly I'm referring to the tabernacle itself as King Solomon's project, right? Or not project, but his building of the temple, where it involved the actual timber and cedar wood and so on, and actually building that stable giant building. Okay, so anyway, they brought up these vessels and so on and so forth, because these vessels were still the same ones that were built back in the wilderness, and they were sanctified, okay, for this purpose. Verse 5, and King Solomon and all the congregation of Israel that were assembled unto him were with him before the ark, sacrificing sheep and oxen that could not be told nor numbered for multitude. So the amount of sheep and oxen they were sacrificing was so much that it was innumerable. You couldn't even count or tell how many it was that they sacrificed. And keep in mind, right, this sacrifice, right, we're talking about, let me see, Solomon's temple. Let's get an image. Let's hoping I'd find one with the actual priest. Okay, maybe we can utilize this here. So this is just a depiction, but you can imagine that it was a very, and there was a lot going on, right? Because you're sacrificing, right? That means there's a, you have priests, they're killing the animals, they're draining the blood, they're washing them, cleaning them, they're offering them on the altar. There's a lot going on. Okay. Verse 6, and the priest brought in the ark of the covenant of the Lord Yahweh onto his place, into the oracle of the house, the oracle being the Holy of Holies, right? So when you go into the temple, let's see if I can find a better imagery here to show. All right, I suppose we can use this one here. Oh yeah, so looks like we can use this one, and this is what's going on here. All right, yeah, not entirely sure what's going on. Okay, maybe we can just use this here. So anyway, you can see you enter the holy place here, and then the Holy of Holies is like the back room in here. So that's where the ark was placed. So as it says here, to the most holy place, even under the wings of the cherubims. Remember the design within the oracle, you had the two cherubims with their wings. I think they were facing each other. So the ark was placed under that. There was a special area in between the two cherubims that was designated for that. For the cherubims spread forth their two wings over the place of the ark. Now, they weren't live, right? This was the way they were designed. When it says they spread forth, it means that's how their design was looking. And the cherubims covered the ark and the staves thereof above. So that you had the wings above, and then under you had the ark. And the wing and they drew out the staves or staves, that the ends of the staves were seen out of the holy place. This kind of bothers me a bit. Oh, staves. Okay.
Staves.
Perfect. The staves. So they drew out the staves, that the ends of the staves were seen out of the holy place before the oracle, meaning that you're in the holy place, and then you have the Holy of Holies, but the staves were so long that they were protruding out from the Holy of Holies. You could sort of see them from within the holy place. Let me pull up an image here. Once again, Temple of Solomon. Just hoping I can get a actual good one. But, I'm sure you get the message. So imagine you're in the holy place. You can see the staves from here that are within the oracle. And there they are on to this day. So at the point of writing, at least for this, you would imagine that this is probably at a time when the temple and everything, the state of things was as it's being described there, right? Because we know at some point in the future it wasn't the case anymore. The temple got destroyed and so on. Verse 9, there was nothing in the ark save the two tables of stone. Now, it's called an ark, right? The Ark of the Covenant, because it's an actual ark. Ark meaning like a box, right? A rectangular or square shaped box. And within it was the actual covenant, right? Which was the stones that had the writings of that was given to Moses when he went up on the mountain. So that's why it's called the Ark of the Covenant, because it's actually an ark that contains the covenant within it. So verse 9, it says, there was nothing in the ark save the two tables of stone, which Moses put there at Horeb, when the Lord Yahweh made a covenant with the children of Israel when they came out of the land of Egypt. And it came to pass, when the priests were come out of the holy place, that the cloud filled the house of the Lord. Right? So after they had put the ark over there, they came outside, and this cloud was a chariot, right? Because we know when it comes to the mention of clouds, yeah, sometimes it's actual clouds, but most cases here, when it deals with the glory of the Lord or the angels and the clouds, it's mainly talking about the chariots of Israel, right? In this case, like the so-called UFOs or UAPs. So as it says, it filled the house of the Lord. So you can imagine, it's pretty huge over there. Now, it doesn't mean it came and literally just like, boom, just like sat on top of the actual building. But you can imagine it was probably hovering right up above, as it says, so that the priests could not stand to minister because of the cloud. So they can even continue, ministering, meaning the process of preparing the sacrifice, offering the sacrifice, because you could imagine looking up and seeing that thing over there. For the glory of the Lord Yahweh had filled the house of the Lord. Verse 12, then spake Solomon, the Lord Yahweh said that he would dwell in the thick darkness. I have surely built thee an house to dwell in, a settled place for thee to abide in forever. And the king turned his face about, and blessed all the congregation of Israel. And all the congregation of Israel stood. So then he turned around, faced the congregation. You can imagine it was pretty huge at this point. And they all rose up as King Solomon blessed them. And he said, Blessed be the Lord Yahweh, God of Israel, which spake with his mouth unto David my father, and hath with his hand fulfilled it, saying, Since the day that I brought forth my people Israel out of Egypt, I chose no city out of all the tribes of Israel to build an house, that my name might be therein. But I chose David to be over my people Israel. Saying the Lord never specifically said, hey, build me a temple and put it up in this house right here, or in this city or this location right here. But what he did do was he appointed King David to be the king over Israel. And it was in the heart of David my father to build an house for the name of the Lord Yahweh, God of Israel. So, and then you read that right in the book of Samuel. The thought came into David's mind to say, yo, here I am, dwelling in my own. I have a house and everything to dwell in, but what about the Most High? Where's his? And so it came to David's mind to build a house or a temple for the Lord, as King Solomon is referencing here. And the Lord Yahweh said unto David my father, Whereas it was in thine heart to build an house unto my name, thou didst well that it was in thine heart. So your intentions were good. I'm glad that you thought about me and you thought about building a house for me. Nevertheless, thou shalt not build the house, but thy son that shall come forth out of thy loins, he shall build the house unto my name. So good intentions, but you're not going to be the one to build it. Instead, it'll be your son. In this case, King Solomon. And the Lord Yahweh hath performed his word that he spake, and I am risen up in the room of David my father. The room meaning in the stead, in the position. In this case, he became king, right? King Solomon, that is. And sit on the throne of Israel as the Lord Yahweh promised, and have built an house for the name of the Lord God of Israel. And I have set there a place for the ark, wherein is the covenant of the Lord, which he made with our fathers when he brought them out of the land of Egypt. And Solomon stood before the altar of the Lord in the presence of all the congregation of Israel, and spread forth his hands toward heaven. So at this point, he faced the altar, he got on his knees, and he spread forth his hands. How do we know he got on his knees? Well, as we keep reading, we'll find out. And he said, Yahweh, power of Israel, there is no God like thee, in heaven above or in earth beneath, who keepeth covenant and mercy with thy servants that walk before thee with all their heart. Who has kept with thy servant David, my father, that thou promised him. So you kept your promise unto David. Thou spakest also with thy mouth, and hast fulfilled it with thine hand, as it is this day. So you basically, like you're a man of your word, right? You said it and you did it. Therefore now, Yahweh, power of Israel, keep with thy servant David, my father, that thou promised him, saying, so keep your promise to David, saying, there shall not fail thee a man in my sight to sit on the throne of Israel. And this is talking about the children of the lineage of David, right? That royal line, because that is what the Lord told David. So that thy children take heed to their way, that they walk before me as thou hast walked before me. So as long as your children, your descendants, serve me in the way that you did, you'll always have one to sit on the throne. And now, O power of Israel, let thy word, I pray thee, be verified, which thou spakest unto thy servant David, my father. But will God indeed dwell on the earth? Behold, the heaven and heaven of heavens cannot contain thee. How much less this house that I have builded? So, at the end of the day, is the Most High going to actually dwell in this earthly house, when even the heavens of heavens, or the whatever you want to call it, the space and whatever, it can't even hold the Lord, but this house will? Verse 28, yet have thou respect unto the prayer of thy servant, and to his supplication, O Lord Yahweh my power, to hearken unto the cry and to the prayer which thy servant prayeth before thee today. So, even though this is quote unquote your house, though it's nowhere near enough to actually house you, still, acknowledge it and hear, our prayers unto you. At least King Solomon is saying, my prayer unto you this day. Verse 29, that thine eyes may be open toward this house night and day. So you be attentive to it, even toward the place of which thou hast said, my name shall be there. So, that's why when we read up above, it says David intended to build a house to the name of the Lord. Just the name of the Lord alone is that, powerful. That thou mayest hearken unto the prayer which thy servant shall make toward this place. And hearken thou to the supplication of thy servant, and to thy people Israel, when they shall pray toward this place. And hear thou in heaven thy dwelling place, and when thou hearest, forgive. So please pay attention here. And when you hear Israel, pray towards this place, and they come and they make their prayers towards you, hear it from where you are, and have mercy and forgive. If any man trespass against his neighbor, and an oath be laid upon him to cause him to swear, and the oath come before thine altar in this house. So if there's an issue, there's a cause, some problem, and they make somebody take an oath, right, to say an oath of innocency or whatnot, to say, if you're guilty, this will happen. If you're not, this will happen, before the altar of the Lord. Then as King Solomon is praying for here, saying, if that happens, then hear thou in heaven and do, and judge thy servants, condemning the wicked, to bring his way upon his head, and justifying the righteous, to give him according to his righteousness. So if this person comes, they take this oath, but they're wicked, bring that judgment upon them. But if this person truly is innocent and righteous, then once again, recompense them accordingly. When thy people Israel be smitten down. Now remember, this is a prayer. King Solomon is praying right now, right? When thy people Israel be smitten down before the enemy, because they have sinned against thee, and shall turn again to thee, and confess thy name, and pray, and make supplication unto thee in this house, then hear thou in heaven, and forgive the sin of thy people Israel, and bring them again unto the land which thou gavest unto their fathers. All right, so if there's a war, if there's a battle, if there's something going on, if the enemy comes to take us over, because of our transgressions, because that's the only chance that the adversaries would get to come against Israel, then, and you have Israel repents, they turn, they confess, and they pray, and they beg you for mercy, then hear them, forgive them, and bring them back to the land, right? Say in the case that they've been taken captive or whatnot. When heaven is shut up and there is no rain, heaven shut up meaning, once again, there is no rain, because they have sinned against thee, if they pray toward this place and confess thy name, key word, thy name, and turn from their sin, when thou afflictest them, then hear thou in heaven and forgive the sin of thy servants and of thy people Israel, that thou teach them the good way. So if once again, so what King Solomon is saying here is, if our enemies come against us, that's a punishment from the Lord because we sinned. And then we turn, we repent, we confess, and we seek you. Please have mercy and forgive us, right? Or if we sin and then you cause there to be a drought and there's no rain, and Israel acknowledges their transgressions and turn back to you, then once again, hear them and forgive them. Verse 36, then hear thou in heaven and forgive the sin of thy servants and of thy people Israel, that thou teach them the good way wherein they should walk, and give rain upon thy land, which thou hast given to thy people for an inheritance. So have mercy on them, right? Forgive them and correct them, show them the right way to go in, and then, give them that rain. If there be in the land famine, if there be pestilence, blasting, mildew, locust, Or if there be caterpillar. Now the locust, caterpillar, these are creatures that eat your crops. All right, and that's leading to that famine. If their enemy besiege them in the land of their cities, whatsoever plague, whatsoever sickness there be. Right, so if there's whatever kind of affliction you bring upon us, what prayer and supplication soever be made by any man or by all thy people Israel, which shall know every man the plague in his own heart. So any prayer that comes to you from any Israelite, knowing, whatever plague or affliction they're going through in their minds, and spread forth his hands towards this house. So right, facing the east, towards the temple of the Lord. Then hear thou in heaven thy dwelling place, and forgive, and do, and give to every man according to his ways, whose heart thou knowest. For thou, even thou only, knowest the hearts of all the children of men. So deal with them accordingly. They pray to you. Everybody knows what they have going on, but hear them and forgive them, and acknowledge it accordingly, right? Verse 40, that they may fear thee all the days that they live in the land which thou gavest unto our fathers. Moreover, concerning a stranger that is not of thy people Israel. Now, when you go into the word stranger here, in the Hebrew is nakar, right? Or nakar, but in this context, it's actually dealing with an Israelite. Okay, so you may have the word stranger that is most of the time, in most cases, used to refer to like a natural, maybe like another nation or so, right? But you have to look into the context of which the word is being used. Okay, and here a stranger is referring to an Israelite that's not native to the land, in the sense that they're not maybe born in the land, they were living in a foreign land, but they're still a part of the commonwealth of Israel, right? So as King Solomon is praying here, he's praying not only for the Israelites that are in the land, but also those that were not. Because even at this time of King Solomon, it wasn't, Israel people migrate in general, so it wasn't that every single Israelite in existence was dwelling in Israel at this time. So King Solomon prayed for them as well. And as it reads, concerning a stranger that is not of thy people Israel, and that what that means is he's not of those that are born in the land, but cometh out of a far country for thy name's sake. This is not going to be the case for the heathen. Okay, and as we keep on going, you'll see why. For they shall hear of thy great name, and of thy strong hand, and of thy stretched out arm, when he shall come, that stranger, and pray towards this house. Hear thou in heaven thy dwelling place, and do according to all that the stranger calleth to thee for, that all people of the earth may know thy name, to fear thee, as do thy people Israel, and that they may know that this house which I have builded is called by thy name. Now, let's say you go with the case of, okay, this is talking about any actual nation here. Do you honestly think that King Solomon would be here praying that any nation, including Edomites, whenever they come to this temple and they pray to the Lord, that the Lord should hear their prayers and he should do according to all that they're praying for? So one example is, well, when you had Balak who looked for Balaam and tried to get Balaam to curse Israel, how did that go? That didn't turn out in his favor. So you got to use the context here to see what do you. So an Edomite will come there and pray, oh, I prayed, Lord, that you destroy Israel, and then King Solomon asked for it, so I'm going to do it. Doesn't make sense, right? Verse 44. So this is talking about Israelites, and really in particular, this was really going to be something that only those that really truly sincerely served and feared the Lord and knew the Lord would do anyway. And that's why King Solomon prayed up above that, address their prayers according to them, and deal with them accordingly. Verse 44. If thy people go out to battle against their enemy, whithersoever thou shalt send them, and shall pray unto the Lord Yahweh toward the city which thou hast chosen, and toward the house that I have built for thy name, then hear thou in heaven their prayer and their supplication, and maintain their cause. right? So if they pray to you, they're in battle, they're in war, whatever the case is, hear them, and preserve their cause, whatever it is they're praying for. If they sin against thee, for there is no man that sinneth not, and thou be angry with them, and deliver them to the enemy, so that they carry them away captives onto the land of the enemy, far or near. So if they sin, you get mad and you bring another nation and they take us captive into some foreign land, whether it's close or whether it's far away. Yet if they shall bethink themselves in the land whither they were carried captives, and repent, and make supplication unto thee in the land of them that carried them captives, saying, we have sinned, and have done perversely, and have committed wickedness, and so return unto thee with all their heart and with all their soul, in the land of their enemies, which led them away captive, and pray unto thee toward their land, which thou gavest unto their fathers, the city which thou hast chosen, and the house which I have built for thy name. So they get taken away captive, but in that land, wherever they are, they repent, they turn, they seek you, Lord, and they pray unto you. Then hear thou their prayer and their supplication in heaven, thy dwelling place, and maintain their cause. And forgive thy people that have sinned against thee, and all their transgressions wherein they have transgressed against thee, and give them compassion before them who carry them captive. So have mercy on them, and to the point where whatever nation we were captives under, they wouldn't be as oppressive upon us by the mercy of the Lord, that they may have compassion on them. One example is even during the time of Esther, right? Like how the Lord set it up to where we now gain favor even in that captivity. For they be thy people and thine inheritance, which thou broughtest forth out of Egypt from the midst of the furnace of iron, that thine eyes may be open unto the supplication of thy servant, and unto the supplication of thy people Israel, to hearken unto them in all that they call for unto thee. For thou didst separate them from among all the people of the earth to be thine inheritance, as thou spakest by the hand of Moses thy servant, when thou broughtest our fathers out of Egypt, O Lord Yahweh. And it was so that when Solomon had made an end of praying all this prayer and supplication unto the Lord Yahweh, he arose from the altar of the Lord, from kneeling on his knees with his hands spread up to heaven. And he stood and blessed all the congregation of Israel with a loud voice, saying, Blessed be the Lord Yahweh, that hath given rest unto his people Israel, according to all that he promised. There hath not failed one word of all his good promise, which he promised by the hand of Moses his servant. And you can go back into Deuteronomy and read about that. The Lord Yahweh our God be with us, as he was with our fathers. Let him not leave us nor forsake us, that he may incline our hearts unto him, to walk in all his ways, meaning that he'll put it in our spirit, in our minds, to be inclined to follow the ways of the Lord and to keep his commandments. And to keep his commandments and his statutes and his judgments which he commanded our fathers. And let these my words, wherewith I have made supplication before the Lord Yahweh, be nigh unto the Lord our God day and night. So let the Lord, lay these to heart, right? That he maintain the cause of his servant and the cause of his people Israel at all times, as the matter shall require. So that the Lord hears whatever matter it is we're praying to the Lord for, that he hears that and he grants it to us. That all the people of the earth may know that the Lord Yahweh is God, and that there is none else. Let your heart therefore be perfect. Let your heart therefore be perfect with the Lord Yahweh our God, to walk in his statutes and to keep his commandments as at this day. And the king and all Israel with him offered sacrifice before the Lord, and Solomon offered a sacrifice of peace offerings, which he offered unto the Lord 22,000 oxen and 120,000 sheep. So the king and all the children of Israel dedicated the house of the Lord. The same day did the king hallow the middle of the court that was before the house of the Lord, for there he offered burnt offerings and meat offerings. Not him literally, right? Because the priest would physically be doing that. And the fat of the peace offerings because the brazen altar that was before the Lord Yahweh was too little to receive the burnt offerings and meat offerings and the fat of the peace offerings. So they had to sanctify the court area, because the altar wasn't enough for all the offerings that were coming in for them to make those sacrifices. And at that time Solomon held a feast, and all Israel with him, a great congregation, from the entering in of Hamath onto the river of Egypt, which is very huge, before the Lord Yahweh our God 7 days and 7 days, even 14 days. That's 14 days total. On the 8th day he sent the people away, and they blessed the king, and went on to their tents joyful and glad of heart for all the goodness that the Lord Yahweh had done for David his servant, and for Israel his people. And that brings us to the end of the book of 1 Kings, the 8th chapter. Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Ruach HaKodesh. Until next time, Shalom.